Okay, we're here with Dr. Anne Bunde-Birouste, Doctor of Public Health at the University of New South Wales, founder of Football United, and also relevant to today's conversation, the board member of Street Football World. Hi, Anne, how are you?
Hi, Stuart. Hi, everybody out there. I'm good.
Good stuff, good stuff. So we're going to talk about something specific today, namely sport for social change during COVID-19, and in particular, the Street Football World global response and the members' response to that. So before we do get into that, can you maybe give a little introduction to your role, both in Australia and globally?
Okay. Well, I've got a number of roles, so I'll just kind of go through them. First role I have in relation to this is as a founder and now director of Football United, which operates in Australia and Myanmar. And I'm also, and the way I got to be with Football United is, as you said, I'm at the University of New South Wales School of Public Health, and I take care of convening health promotion at undergraduate and graduate level, and I teach a course in Sport for Good. And one of the things that I'm currently involved in, and I think that's why we're having this conversation, is tracking the response and the impact of this COVID situation across the Sport for Good sector. And that brings me to the third role I have, which is I'm a board member of the Street Football World Network. And for those people who are watching who don't know about Street Football World, it's a network of organizations across the globe managed by a really effective headquarters team in Berlin. And basically, you've got more than 135 organizations using football to promote positive social change, to address health questions, to address societal issues, to promote gender equity, and the like. And organizations are in more than 35 different countries. So the membership is very diverse. There are some big organizations that operate internationally in different continents, different countries. There are organizations like Football United, which are well established, operating in 2 countries mainly, engaged internationally in a number of things. So as a board member, one of my roles is to advise the leadership as to what's going on in the field, to advise members what's happening at a more larger level, and to support members. And this is where this recent work of tracking COVID responses and trying to help members develop responses has been really crucial and really exciting, actually.
That's cool. The scale and diversity is obviously I find that like so fascinating that there's one organization not trying to copy and paste their work across the world, but to support the different organizations addressing different challenges in the local context. So, is like I said, it's really interesting to better understand the different contexts and the different problem-solving techniques, I guess, that the organizations are using locally. This with COVID-19 and the, I guess, rapid developments relatively of COVID-19 and the new challenges that are arising due to COVID-19. What was the initial response across the different countries and the different contexts? Was there were you able to understand kind of a consistency, or was it all different responses? How did you react to that?
Well, I think that the initial response mirrored a lot of the response across the globe in general, which was, I think initially there was possibly a little bit of maybe not denial, but somewhat disbelief in the fact that, oh, is this thing really so important? It except for obviously in China, it kind of creeped in a bit. But then all of a sudden, we started thinking, whoa, this is really big stuff here. And I remember watching you guys at Football United and Creating Chances start to deal with what is this meaning. And so I think it was kind of gradually creeping in, but gradual is relative. We're talking a week, maybe 2.
Yeah.
Then I noticed, yeah. But then, so we have virtual board meetings every couple months, every 2 months maybe, but in the last 3 months, we've had them every other week. And I noticed exchanging with the board members early on, there was, I don't want to say anything as strong as panic, but there was really severe concern.
Mm-hmm.
And organizations that depend largely on philanthropic
Mm-hmm.
donations or grants of one sort, and they're never very long-term grants. So these organizations operate in a situation of not precarity, but short-term
Mm-hmm.
assurance, if you
Mm-hmm.
would, in the
Yeah.
best of cases, right? And one of the things that we're involved in at the university is looking at social enterprise as a sustainability mechanism for these organizations. In the last couple of years, this is a bit of an aside, but you'll see where I'm going with this. In the last couple of years, we've been working really hard to help network members build a capacity to generate their own income.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden, we're facing a situation where this is a sector which relies more than many on human interaction in a physical sense, you know, as much as playing a game of football. You can't play a game of football by your screen. Well, you play these virtual games, but
Mm-hmm.
frankly, that's not football in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
We, you know, our success and the positive impact all of these organizations have, and it's very well documented, it
Mm-hmm.
relies on that interpersonality and that face-to-face and that engagement. And in a world where we can't do that, the initial reaction from an awful lot of network members was, what's going to happen to us? Are we going to survive? What's going to happen to our staff? Many of whom are not on long-term contracts, but casual contracts. And so this was a very scary and unsettling time. And of course, people were dealing with the uncertainties within the rest of their lives as well. And then this comes on top of it. And for people like me who are directors, and I remember speaking to another colleague who directs a US-wide and international organization, and she was very, 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 very concerned. And I think I'll give you a bit of an anecdote. I think it was, in my case, watching the staff, you guys, bounce back creatively and quickly and enthusiastically was a real reassurance to me, and it helped me take that to the network and say, hey, we're starting to see some really cool stuff. And then once little things became bigger things, and once organizations were finding ways to react, I think things settled down a bit. Not fully, because there's still a lot of anxiety, and I've got a report here that we did early on in street football world. I think it was the first couple of weeks of March. So there's a difference in how organizations are reacting. But initially, I think it was a bit of disbelief, and then some intense worry.
I think so. I've described them like my personal understanding, separate to I guess work. It's just you're able to think about like one step or two steps, and you kind of see someone might mention something, and you see the third domino falling, and maybe the fourth domino.
Yeah.
But these dominoes are going off in so many different directions, and yeah, just I guess reiterating the challenges. Yeah, such diverse challenges across the world that these organizations, including ours, are trying to address. And we think about I think about the delivery maybe, or that kind of front end, how you engage young people, how you engage to solve the problems that you see. But every organization has the financial and also logistical, like human resource challenges on top of that, just kind of compounding it. It's that's just an interesting way of framing it.
That's a really good point, Stuart. And we're not the only sector to be worrying about this. Obviously, the entertainment sector, the food and beverage sector, etc. But I think, and I don't say one is more important than the other, but this thinking that here are organizations who have been building for 15, 20 years, and it's a sector where the reputation for positive change is now finally starting to be recognized. And does this mean we're gonna cease to exist? And we're very lucky in Australia that our government has put in place some significant resources to combat this kind of thing. But there are countries like our other programs in Myanmar. There's no unemployment check in Myanmar. So one of the things that organizations are trying to do is they're trying to work with funders to see if the funding bodies will accept that this transitional alternative way of operating is going to be okay, is going to be considered a replacement, if you would, for what they normally would have been doing, which is running clinics and courses and workshops and festivals and whatever. So that's one, will funders acknowledge that this interim modus operandi is valid and accept that, and not expect at the end of all of this for organizations to deliver as many face-to-face. Now, generally, funders are being really supportive. One of the big funding organizations is this Laureate Sport for Good Foundation. And I'd encourage people to go and look on their website, because one of the things they are running are weekly Zoom meetings among members, but it's open to the public, so people can find out what's going on and how people are reacting. So there's that. There's but things like the social enterprises are that organizations like, let's take an example in Lesotho in Africa. Lesotho is one of the most sophisticated organizations as far as social enterprises. They run a hotel. They run a very successful restaurant. They run an academy, an education academy, which is not a social enterprise, but they are able to provide education to many of their young people thanks to these social enterprises. So now, in this current situation, and by the way, the Kick for Life is a major actor in the fight against HIV in Lesotho.
Yeah, huge.
So, one, they can't do their health promotion activities through football, all the HIV activities. Two, they now have a significant chunk of their funding cut, and significant numbers of jobs, by the way. Because,
hospitality and
So that's a really, really big impact. But what's interesting also are organizational responses.
Okay.
So once people started coming to terms with, okay, we're going to move on. And like I said, most of the really effective responses came from teams, from staff, from people like yourself and the rest of the Football United management and operations team, and creating chances, figuring out very quickly how they could provide alternatives to the face-to-face. In some areas, organizations are really addressing the disease, the virus in and of itself. And many organizations really got involved on the front line, got involved in even making masks, like Whiz Kids United. They're in Ghana. They've mobilized their staff. Many of their staff are also in the health sector, so they've mobilized their staff to assist with testing. They've started making masks that they're delivering. Oscar Foundation in India, now they came up with a really cool response. This is a country where the virtual online responses are not necessarily going to reach the people that they generally reach, because they don't have an extensive and reliable internet network, or their participants, the benefactors of their programs, they don't have smartphones, they don't have online capacity. So those organizations in situations like that, and we're in the same in Myanmar, the communities we work with, we work face-to-face. They don't have this capacity. So Oscar Foundation, they literally developed and printed like thousands of pamphlets, and they got them delivered door to door in their communities. Pamphlets that had reliable information on, what they need to do, how do you
Mm.
isolate, how do you keep safe, washing your hands, all that stuff. But so organizations that decided to address the virus as well as their own operations, that they came first and foremost on an information sharing
Yeah.
type of an angle. But then rapidly also, and this happened with Creating Chances and Football United as well, I remember talking, addressing the anxiety,
Mm.
addressing the uncertainty. And another organization called Coaches Across Continents,
Mm-hmm.
they also address what they call scary diseases in
Mm-hmm.
general. You
Mm-hmm.
know, so there's a lot of really diverse response out there,
Yeah.
which I
That's
find, and also diverse platforms.
it's interesting the approaches like to directly address COVID-19 and I guess adapt. Some organizations, obviously, like you say, do address public health and health issues, but to directly, to quickly mobilize and to create content that can be pushed out there to directly address COVID-19 as people are experiencing it is really interesting. I was going to add one
Sorry,
extra thing.
I just jump
Yeah.
in on that one. I think one of the things that we all can do in our Sport for Good organizations is, I mean, look, we're not experts on pandemics and virus spread
Mm-hmm.
and stuff, but we can help our members
Mm-hmm.
know where to go to get good information, because misinformation and rumors in a situation like today's situation are even more devastating than they often are.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we want to see stop is panicking, is bad information, is victim blaming,
Mm-hmm.
and the whole racism thing now
Mm-hmm.
is starting to come back. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that one response collectively our sector needs to do is enable our people to know where to get good information and how to avoid engaging in misinformation.
That's good. As you were speaking as well, I found one thing interesting. Like when people talk about, or when I talk about Football United, obviously the name and the look of how we present ourselves, it's like a football organization. But like football is just a vehicle, right? So we have I think a greater mission, greater vision to engage young people and to create these opportunities for young people. And so that, despite the, we're restricted with the human interaction, the face-to-face interaction on the field playing together as we normally do, because that is such a good tool to engage a lot of young people at once. But we still kind of maintain that mission to create these opportunities for young people. And we've just got to adapt to use different channels to do that. So where can we still connect? Right now we use online, I guess, and that's the social media platforms, multiple social media platforms. But we're still, we're not necessarily changing what we're doing. We're just changing the channels that we do it through.
Yeah.
And whereas some of the organizations you're saying are actually, maybe changing what they're doing to address the COVID-19. I guess still working towards the same, potentially the same mission.
I think that may be also in part because of where organizations are located.
Mm-hmm.
In a country like Australia, where you have a real significant availability of reliable information and almost overload in a sense, because it's coming. And that's something we also need to talk about, because it's coming regularly and it's readily available.
Mm-hmm.
And in more emerging economy countries, or countries which are more vast and spread out, for example, this may not be the case. And so organizations, I think, feel that whenever there's a challenge, be it an environmental challenge or a health challenge, these organizations do get involved beyond the football. You know what I mean? So I think it also reflects sort of the way they operate in the communities in which they operate.
Yeah, Yeah, that's good. That's good. I guess maybe maybe we can dig a little bit deeper into this. I've got one of the things to discuss is we've seen COVID-19 spread throughout the world, and hit particularly hard, obviously initially in China, and then European countries, France and Spain and Italy, UK, and into the US. I guess as it spreads, there's we're hearing from Myanmar as well, kind of what's happening there, and because we work there and we have colleagues there. How do you see, like, I know we've discussed that already, but how do you see the disparity between countries and maybe the organizations in the countries? We've talked a little bit about it, but maybe just is there a general rule between how long it's going to last, and the reaction as well of the organizations in those different countries? Is that something you're aware of right now, or are we still kind of bringing information in?
Well, no, I think that the countries, I think that the communication engagement is a first level of indication of the disparities. There are there are organizations who have been very quick to engage, and I think that having membership in a global network like Street Football World or Laureates, for example, is a crucial element to helping even the least advantaged areas be able to have some sort of response, if nothing else, for them to feel like they aren't alone.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that Street Football World and Come and Goal, which is a whole nother moment of discussion, but one of the things that we've been able to do with Street Football World is action some emergency support funds and get the possibility out to our members. And it's not all about money, obviously, but that takes one big worry off the table. I think it's too early to say what is going to happen. I think the smaller organizations, maybe the newer organizations, or organizations who maybe are a bit more less experienced, maybe less engaged, will have it a lot harder. Key to organizations' survival, in my opinion, is their resiliency and their capacity to be connected to, like to Street Football World, for example, because they have access to assistance of some kind or another. That being said, some of the most effective programs we see across the world are not programs with lots of financial resources, but lots of dedication and energy. But I think it's going to depend also on, as far as the sector goes, on how hard a country is actually hit health-wise, because and how a country's how a country's economy is going, right? Like I said, Australia, we are so privileged here. We have access to so many diverse means of assistance, and our schools have the internet connectivity that enables us to continue to work with them, and they're happy for it. So that I think there's a big difference. In Myanmar, I'm very worried. Myanmar is a classic example of a country where the connectivity is not necessarily reaching to all the rural and small and even medium townships, but that also, as everybody knows, has an ongoing simmering conflict. And, we're already seeing crazy stuff happening in countries like the US, where people are getting aggravated. And, one of the things we don't want to see is to have conflicts come out on top of everything else that people are dealing with. But when it comes to, and we saw the crazy people early on in Australia fighting over toilet paper. I mean, if it comes down to things like that, and a country is already poor, doesn't have health systems that can answer, and on top of it, we have conflict, then we're going to see some really worrying stuff. And I don't know what kind of response can help that, frankly. It is worrying.
Yeah, I agree. It's and despite that, it's been really positive to see the leadership from Football United in Myanmar, and they're kind of quick reaction and creative problem solving to
Absolutely
reach,
fantastic.
the tens of thousands of young people that they're working with. So that's positive
Yeah.
in a kind of a really challenging situation. Maybe that's where we're up to today. I think this is something that's going to be ongoing, and we can revisit in a couple of weeks and see what the updates are from around the world. Is there any kind of final message or final piece of information, key message you'd like to leave people with? And we'll wrap it up after that.
I think one thing everybody's dealing with in their own personal ways, and I know I dealt with a lot, is the uncertainty and also the numerous disappointments, most of them on a personal scale. People dealing with all sorts of things. I mean, things being canceled that were of utmost interpersonal importance. For me, this was going to be a superbly exciting year of capacity building across the world through Football for Good. I had numerous trips to run workshops in advocacy and social enterprise, and I also had many really cool personal things happening. And I think if we can all try to keep a positivity and try to help each other through these disappointments, and yes, they are disappointing, they're devastating. Hopefully it doesn't mean they're never going to come back. Hopefully it just means let's adapt. I think that's one thing we can all, through our programs, help each other through. And I also think we need to be very vigilant about where out there are those doing it the hardest, and how can we help within our sphere? Are there members out there across the world that we can maybe just check in with, and find a way to be supportive. I also think we need to be a bit moderate. I've noticed a lot of groups are churning, like they can't get content out fast enough, and they have to do so many things. I think we're in this for a bit of a slog, and I think we need to pace ourselves, because the last thing in the world we want are for people to get burnt out. And I think I'll just close with, like I said, I was dealing with a lot of personal disappointments, and the thing that got me out of that was all the amazing things that you guys at Football United and Creating Chances, our Myanmar people, our donors in Myanmar, street football world, things that people are doing. So focus on the good.
Yeah.
I used to tell people back in the day when it was really hard to get Football United going, that the thing that saved me was going against adversity, was going out to our programs and just hanging out with the kids, and they uplifted me. Well, now I do it differently. I go watch your podcasts or your Instacasts or whatever. So I think that those are the kind of things. Find a way to help others, and find a way for yourself to be able to get your motivation up when you need it.
That's cool. Yeah, I think so. I think it's good to connect, and the benefits of connecting, whether it's socially or for work, or through conversations like this, and sharing them is really important. So cool. Thanks, Anne, very much. Thanks for your time.
Stuart. Goodbye, everybody out there.
All right, take care. See you next time.